Morning Majority on 630.
WMAL. 8:07 on WMAL. Morning Majority. Brian Neiman, Michael Steele in the house this morning.
Thor with you, baby.
All right. Into hour 4. We've been up since 2 o'clock this morning. We're ready to go. Tucker Carlson, editor-in-chief of the Daily Caller, joins us now. I'm sure you were enjoying a very quiet, lovely Mother's Day dinner last night, so perhaps didn't see the 60 Minutes interview that the president gave with Steve Croft. But I'm wondering, the president should give that interview, right, a week after getting bin Laden?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's something to celebrate. I think he's certainly got a right to talk about it, and of course he has a motive to talk about it. I think it's worth celebrating. I guess the one thing that confuses me is his claim that this was a courageous decision. I think it was a good decision, smart decision, but hardly courageous. I mean, taking a shot at Osama bin Laden, if you're American, doesn't require a lot of counterintuitive boldness.
Yeah, we talked about this last week.
Cutting Medicare would be a brave decision.
Well, there are a lot of things that could have gone wrong, though.
Well, sure, there always are, but I mean, we could say that about any military.
Yeah, that's Tucker's right. That's an inherent risk that you're going to take when you do that. I mean, getting Osama is a job requirement for the president of the United States. Period. And that's not courage. That's responsibility.
I hear that. We got into a heated debate about this last week, and maybe.
But what's so brave about it?
Well, maybe courageous isn't the right word, but you're sending helicopters into Pakistan to go after a house that you don't know if bin Laden is in there or not.
If that's
wrong there.
Risk.
Yes.
Courage would have been him getting on the helicopter and going.
Yeah.
But presumably there are all kinds of military operations, American military operations taking place in Pakistan and other places around the world that we never hear about, some of which fail. Right? So, I mean, this is not taking place in public view. It's not to detract from it. I mean, it was a remarkable achievement, I think, by SEAL Team 6,
right,
assuming they're the ones who did it.
Well, the thing that strikes me, and this kind of will bleed Tucker into the Republican nominating process, is the foundation on which this success, this courage, or whatever you want to call it, was placed or founded was what Bush did. The Bush doctrine adopted in total by the Obama administration, from the Secretary of Department of Defense to NSA to CIA. That was the foundation here on which this success was wrought. How do Republicans now walk that tightrope of acknowledging what President Obama did, but also helping the public appreciate that there's 8 years of preparation for that?
Well, that's a really good point. I guess I would flip it over, and I would say I'm amazed by the path the president has gotten after adopting, essentially, as you said, the Bush doctrine, and in some cases a pretty neoconservative line on foreign policy. I mean, our involvement in Libya is not really justifiable on practical grounds, really only on neoconservative grounds. The idea that we need to encourage democracy where.
Right.
Where we see it, and that all people have a right to self-determination, and we ought to send military hardware to ensure that right, et cetera, et cetera. These are all ideas that Obama mocked and that the left mocked, and now, of course, it's official policy. It's amazing.
Well, he is a chameleon.
Well, he hasn't continued everything. I mean, obviously, and I think President Bush put an end to waterboarding, but enhanced interrogation is essentially off the table these days. So you can't say that everything has been followed from the Bush administration.
No, that's true. No, that's absolutely right. But let me put it this way. If you had been voting as a Democrat in the New Hampshire primary, 2008, and somebody told you, look, if you vote for Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton will be the Secretary of State, we will still be in Afghanistan, we will still be in Iraq, and by the way, we're going to be getting involved in, let's just say, Libya.
Right.
You would say, come on now, that can't be true.
Right, exactly. And I think that's the bottom line on the foreign policy front. But then again, you flip the script to the domestic front, where when you look at the 2012 cycle, you're looking at the almost the dynamics in reverse, where Democrats typically strong on domestic issues, weak on the foreign policy. Well, you've got a Democrat president now who's got a pretty strong hand in foreign policy because of toting the conservative line. But on domestic policy, the wheels are coming off the cart a little bit. I mean, I think the numbers on the job report on Friday were, something that both sides could crow about. The president saying, oh, look, we 244,000 new jobs. But the unemployment rate, the Republicans would say, has gone up. So how does this play out? What should we be looking for over the summer months, whether it's the job reports or other domestic, science, probably starting with, the debt vote that's coming up soon. What is the dynamic out there now for us?
Well, I mean, it seems to me that Republicans in the House are going to be under an awful lot of pressure not to raise the debt ceiling. I think the macro, look, let me just 3 steps back quickly. The numbers are terrible. The economy is in a perilous position. The country is broke. People understand that. I think if you had a strong Republican nominee who could articulate a vision and more precisely articulate an attack on Barack Obama's presidency that wasn't personal but was, penetrating and clear, if you had an articulate candidate, you could win. I think Republicans could absolutely win. The question is, where's this candidate?
I was going to ask you, do we have such a person lying in wait?
I travel a lot. Everywhere I go, Republicans come up. Where's the candidate? Who's going to ride in at the last minute from, off stage and, become the nominee and win? I think there's a general feeling, and maybe it's unfair, but that the current field is not strong.
Hey,
they're waiting.
Let me ask you this: Is Herman Cain that strong, or is the field that weak?
I think Herman Cain's a completely appealing, smart, interesting guy. I like Herman Cain a lot, and I think anybody listens to him, how could you not like Herman Cain? But the truth is he's got no government experience, and it's pretty hard. It's pretty hard to get elected president if you haven't been elected to anything else before that. I mean, there's just not a lot, other than like Civil War generals and Eisenhower, there isn't a lot of precedent for that. It could happen, I guess.
Right.
People are watching Christie, who is meeting with Republican leaders in Iowa later this month. Maybe a sign that he's thinking about it. But
now, wait a minute.
Like that.
But after all the protestations to the contrary, Christie all of a sudden jumping up and running for president, wouldn't that create a credibility gap?
It might. But I mean, voters are remarkably tolerant of candidates changing their minds. The current president said, "Look, I'm for campaign finance reform. I'm going to accept federal matching funds for my election," and then campaign, and then of course he did, and then nobody cared. I actually think that would be a 3-day story. What do I know? But that's based on recent precedent. I think Christie could say, "I changed my mind," and not be penalized for it in the long run.
It still reminds people though every week about the economy and about the administration. Maybe not necessarily about the administration, but it's $4 gallon gas.
Yes. That's exactly right. Or in the District of Columbia where I live, $4.40. I paid that yesterday.
Yeah, I mean that's choking. So I mean, yes, the president will have certainly a bump in the polls with Bin Laden, and he can say, "Hey, Hellfire missiles throughout Afghanistan, Pakistan, maybe even Yemen.
Right.
Who knows?" But at the end of the day, it's still about the economy, right, Tucker?
Yeah, I think that very much is about the economy, but it's also about demographics, and there are numbers involved here. And so the question is, in the past 4 years, are there more Democrats registered to vote than there were 4 years ago? My sense is yes.
Yeah.
That's also going to be a hurdle for Republicans. But again, a good Republican candidate could win. I don't think there's any way around that. You just got to find one.
Well, I find it interesting that black unemployment is the highest it's been under any president. It's under Obama at 15, almost 16%, with the Nationals at 9%. That number keeps going up, and so nothing is as it should be, I guess, politically, and that opens up a lot of opportunities for the GOP if they're smart, committed, and forceful in making the argument.
Yeah, those are big ifs.
Yeah, right.
No, I agree with you.
Well, that's the former chairman in me. What can I say?
You're a hopeful man.
Yeah. All right, Tucker. Good to talk to you. Thanks for coming on the show. I appreciate it as always.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Tucker Carlson, Daily Caller here on W.